Guess who is here? Benjamin Akakpo. Today I get to introduce you. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I've been in the back room just observing everything. Really sad scenes from the central region, and especially concerning that prisons officer who lost his life in Akakpo.
Unfortunately.
Sad.
But it's time to bring you another story that has cost some people their lives. It's the latest in our Total Recall series, and this time we are focusing on the men's gold story. Nearly 3 years since the prosecution of its founder, Nana Mensah, commenced, we've really not seen anything, and customers are still bearing the brunt of not having access to their locked up funds. Well, watch this. We'll come back to have a conversation with the producer of the story.
In July 2019, state prosecutors filed charges including defrauding by false pretenses against CEO of the defunct company, Nana Mensah, aka Nam1. This was after he had returned from the United Arab Emirates, where he had been in custody for months.
To assist us make full recovery of the amount owed Men's Gold by Horizon Royal Diamond in Dubai. As an act of good faith, we are willing to engage the Attorney General's office on the best possible way for them to aid Men's Gold by employing international law and diplomatic relations to ensure we achieve this objective. 2, to unfreeze our companies and my personal bank account and asset for us to utilize these as vehicles to get productive in order to meet our liabilities, or to our customers and some business associates in our bid to resolve our liabilities immediately.
Nearly 3 years on, monies invested by the thousands remain outstanding. His prosecution has not even reached the level of a single witness testifying. The case has seen more than 15 adjournments, with prosecutors constantly asking for more. Stephen Abuaji's hope keeps deteriorating. He's one person whose life will never be the same.
A friend told me about it, that this what has come to the system, that thing is very fine, so I should put myself into it to help me. Even the car that is using at the workplace is the same Men's Gold money, so I should try my best and do like 6 months and see what will happen. And then I go to my bank. I invested at Commercial and then Access Bank. So I went there to withdraw all my money there, and then I withdrew to go and buy the gold chips to Men's Gold.
I mean, were you not worried about whether this is a company that you could trust, whether it is registered? Were you not worried about all those issues?
I'm somebody that I used to do more investigations, but what touches my heart that I put my money is the time that the guy was helping GFA, and then he was conniving with the president. You know, I see everything was genuinely. That's the motive purpose that I invested in Men's Gold.
That's a really sad development, but that's just a teaser of what to expect. The full story and will be aired later. The producer of the story, Joseph Akable, will join us to give us all the details. But isn't it interesting? 3 years on, 3 years. So imagine if someone had, say, 100,000 locked up in there.
Mm-hmm. People had their life savings locked up.
And some people have died over time.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens to those people? What happens to their claims? I actually remember there was
maybe family members will continue the fight.
That is, even if they are aware. Some people were too embarrassed
to
even let people know that they had fallen for.
So for such people, it means that their money has gone down the drain.
Because sometimes you say, Benjamin, you fell for a Ponzi scheme. Because people feel bad.
Or even worse, oh, so you had that kind of money, and so a lot of people will even keep it private.
You know, this Men's Gold story,
people have shared stories saying that, look, their entire lives have come to a standstill. If they could get, I mean, from the very, latest that Akable has brought us, if they could even get just half of what they had deposited in there, they'll be good to go to start their lives afresh. I've engaged in the past some pensioners. Some of them have died.
Yeah.
Others have simply not been able to recover ever since. Others have got BP, all kinds of things on the back of that because they keep thinking. Others, do you know, I have interacted with people whose children have not been able to further their education at whatever level, tertiary level and all of that, on the back of this. So that's how bad this really is.
Yeah, really bad and really sad situation. Well, thankfully, we've been joined by a producer of that story. It's our Total Recall. And Joseph Akakpo joins us via Zoom. Hello, Joseph. So first off, tell us why we decided to revisit the story at this time.
I think the conversation between the two of you, aptly captures the very rationale behind it, in that it's a serious issue. And I know many people on a personal level. There are people who have not publicly spoken about it, friends, family, who have millions of cedis invested in that particular company. And they are all looking for it closely, hoping that at some point there will be some good news by way of they having access to their funds. And so it's one of those stories that came up many years ago, has gone through various forms, and we know what we do here at Journeys is that we try to track out one of those stories and try and see what has become of it. So we decided to focus our lenses this time around on the men's gold story. And so it is to remind us of what happened in sometime in the past, and also to bring our listeners and viewers up to date on the current situation, as well as seek some answers from the state actors as well.
Joseph, so we've followed the excerpts and they made for very curious watching. But what are some of the discussions you had with people? I know the full documentary will air, but what are some of the things that were shared with you by these men's gold customers?
I think the common denominator in all of the interactions is the fact that people's lives have not been the same since news hit the airwaves that the gold dealership had been shut down. There are people who are doing good business. They can no longer do the same business they were doing. They can't provide for their families. They can't afford good meals. They can't pay for children's school fees. And then there's the key character that we heard a short while ago, Stephen Abuaji, who is visually impaired. His story is peculiar in that he got injured while participating in a protest at the residence of Nam1 to demand payment of the funds. That was when he fell down, when the police came over there. And so that's how he suffered this injury. He needed money for surgery. He has about 108,000 cedis locked up. The other gentleman whose business has been affected, he has about 350,000 cedis locked up. And so the common denominator obviously is changed lives, that of hope, that of regret. With some minimum expectation that some miracle of sorts will happen. And we know, we've heard from the government directly make the point that they are not going to do a bailout like they did in the case of the banks. And so, their little expectation is that the prosecution should end somewhere, but we all know how that is also turning up in the courts.
Joseph, usually when you interact with people like this, or you put together a documentary like this, something stays with you, sticks with you. As far as this is concerned, yes, you've shared these stories. What is that one thing that will stick with you on the back of putting this together?
I think the lesson from the entire thing will be that, we all need to be totally careful with what investment choices we make. And that's what stuck out for me. And it's the single question I asked each of those we interacted with about what the lesson has been. And they all give the same response, that they need to be mindful. And for some of them, a lot of people tend to think that those who invested in men's gold were naturally people who were greedy or were careless investors. But some of them, these were people who were traditionally investing in very safe instruments. And some even, they invested in bits. So those who have 350,000, they didn't spend 350,000 cedis there. They sent very little amounts because they were very cautious investors and they were getting their returns. It was from getting those returns that they decided to go in full scale. And so that is the lesson that stuck for me, and that is what they also edge on me that, I mean, we really need to be mindful of what investment choices we make, else we risk changing our lives for good.
And so we'll be wrapping this up quickly, but Joseph, one of the things that incenses those who've been affected by the men's gold scandal has to do with how the owner of the dealership firm is still freely moving around, and even though there's a court case, they're not seeing a lot come out of it, even though that gave them some little hope. Without giving too much away, tell us what the Attorney General's Department is saying about this, even if they've spoken at all.
In fact, the information we have from them is to the effect that the dockets, and that is a summary of the evidence that has been compiled by the police prosecutors and presented to the AG's Office for advice. We are told that there are challenges with it that requires fine-tuning, and so that is what has accounted for the delay with this particular case. And so the understanding is that they hope to correct those things, and hopefully the advice will be given. But it's amazing. I've not come in any case that for 3 years the state is yet to do disclosures, and the state hasn't called a single witness. All the state has done in the 3 years is to amend charges and ask for more time and ask for more time and ask for more time without calling a single witness. I've not encountered anything like this in the years covering the courts.
Finally, Joseph, tell us what time we can watch this full piece you've put together, and what other avenues we can access it.
So first, the full, I mean, there will be bits and pieces of it. There's various stories on it on our various bulletins. So in a couple of minutes' time on the news desk, we'll be sharing a bit more detail than what we brought our viewers a short while ago. Then also at 3 p.m. on the Pulse, the full feature or documentary, if you want to put it that way, will also be airing at 3 p.m. on the Pulse. Then at 8:30 p.m. again, our viewers will have the opportunity to watch it in full again. Then tomorrow on the Super Morning Show at 8:30 a.m., there would also be the full documentary as well. So it's also available online. In fact, we've just published just in the last couple of minutes. And so those who will not want to wait, you can have access to it online as well.
Great work, Joseph Akakpo.
Yeah, and I wanted to re-echo that as well, reiterate that. Very good work on this one, Joseph. Feather in your cap. So
Joseph hit the nail right on the head, because I was going to say, I mean, even if you needed to fine-tune, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how these processes work, but 3 years?
3 years.
That's a long
in the
time.
meantime, people have been suffering. You know.
Imagine if a woman had a baby in 3 years, what that child would be saying, walking, jumping, running all around.
I mean, in 3 years, you would have a child who would be able to say men's gold.
That's it. And apologies to all of you who've been affected by this, but hopefully while we bring this total recall, we hope that those who are responsible for prosecuting the owner of the gold dealership will also be reminded, that is, if they've forgotten about this, to look at the lives that have been negatively affected and pick this case up again. At least it will give some people some relief, so that they could also know, whether they're getting their monies back at all, and know what to do, whether to keep hoping or just to throw their hands up in there. At least there should be some conclusion, there should be some closure to this whole episode, So that's for Total Recall. When we come back, we'll be taking your thoughts and comments on the major stories we've been discussing here this morning. Do stay with us.